Hello, everyone. Welcome. I am going to add some comments to this chat so we can all follow along. How are you guys? Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel, AllRosieWrites. How are you guys? I'm excited to see you guys here. Thank you. We will be starting shortly, so everyone can gather along. Everyone can, creep in slowly but surely as they go, and I will go ahead and start my live reading, but no rush. How is everyone doing? Is everyone excited for Halloween? Right. Yes, I hope so. Do we know what we want to be? I don't, honestly, for me, I want to say, I'm trying to think if I'm going to dress up, but I don't think I am. I don't think I'm going to dress up, but if I did, I think I'd probably be like, I don't know, like a t-shirt or something. But yes. Hello. Welcome, guys. I love seeing you guys here. I love seeing all the people come in, come through. I'm going to wait like 5 minutes because I know sometimes people like to straggle in a little bit later and I don't start too early. So I'm just going to give it a little bit. Definitely leave a comment in the chat. Give me a thumbs up, a high five, a hey, what up. Let me know that you guys can hear me, that you guys are hearing me okay, the connection's okay, everything is good. Cool beans. I like it. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to tell you guys about my new short story. I feel like I'm always writing something. A little bit about this short story I can go ahead and explain. Mr. Hill is I want to say spooky short story with the theme of Halloween and with the theme of just darkness. This story is definitely more on the dark side, I want to say. So it's not like my normal happy-go-lucky story. It's more of a story that's about just a tale of Mr. Hill and what he had to go through at the hands of law enforcement. And I do have a law enforcement background. So, of course, a lot of the story does come from just some of my experience, things that I've seen, things that I've heard. A lot of my stories that I write are mixed with real life events that's happened, that's occurred. So a lot of Oh, Mr. Hill are loose representations of those real life events that has occurred or that has happened. So that is where the story originated from. That is exactly where it came from. So this is a story that I'll be reading and presenting to you guys tonight, and I'm so excited. I'm so ready. So thank you guys for being here and joining me. I really, really appreciate the support. I feel like I always have to shout out to my subscribers and my followers and my fan base for keeping up with me, for rooting me on, for giving me a reason why to keep going always. So I'm very, very thankful and very, very fortunate. Okay. It looks like we got a good amount of people rolling on in. I love to see it. Welcome, guys. Thank you so much for joining me in my live reading. Oh, Mr. Hill. It's written by me, of course. And guys, just check out my website too if you want to keep up with me and you want to just know some more about, when I publish new short stories or when I put new posts out on my blog or on my YouTube channel. You can always leave your email address in the comments or shoot me an email or check out my website, AllRosieWrites.com. I will actually write it in the comment box right now. If you guys just want to check out some more things that I've written on my creative works, it's there for you. Okay, guys, so let's begin. Let's get started. It looks like we've got some people coming in. All right. So, as I mentioned before, for those of you just now coming in, Mr. Hill is a loose representation of just things that I've seen in my lifetime and things that I've experienced in my lifetime and just the riveting tale of Mr. Hill and just things that he's encountered. So, let's get to it. All right. And here we are. Oh, Mr. Hill, written by yours truly. This very day felt different. Mr. Hill's head hung low and his eyes began to water in fear of what might be true. Sitting in the diner, sipping on his black coffee, he couldn't help but replay the most tragic events in his mind. She could be anywhere, or worse, he thought to himself. Mrs. Hill was known for her disappearing escapades. After all, she battled with severe depression and she hasn't been the same since she left show business. Mr. Hill did all he could to try and nurse her back to health, but it wasn't working. Soon their 18-year marriage began to dwindle, staying together for the sake of public image. He was nearing retirement and he wanted peace in his lakeside home with his wife and children. Despite their failing marriage and dreadful home life, Mr. Hill still cared for his wife and family and still wanted the best for their well-being. So on that hot summer day in the middle of Angie's diner, Mr. Hill couldn't shake off this eerie yet daunting feeling. Skimming through the obituaries in the newspaper, Mr. Hill continued to sip his coffee. Need a refill, Mr. Hill? The waitress stopped to ask. No, thank you. Just the check, he replied. Just before dropping the change on the table to cover his tab, two men dressed in fully in emerald green walked into the diner. 11:30 was when their lunch rush usually came in, and Mr. Hill, being a frequent flyer at Angie's diner, knew the many faces that ate there. These two were not regulars, so he decided to sit and watch. The two men dressed in emerald green sat 3 tables away from Mr. Hill, but right in his line of vision, which made peeping a breeze. The men got comfortable in their seats, and on the waist of one of the men, Mr. Hill could see the bright gold-starred badge with the inscription, Sheriff's Office. Mr. Hill's eyes quickly lit up as he felt as if the answers that he was praying for. Mr. Hill approached the 2 men at the table. My apologies to interrupt your lunch, gentlemen, but I seem to have a problem. How can we help? Asked the men. Well, my wife has been missing for a few days, and I haven't heard from her. She's on antidepressants, and she has a history with drinking. She does this from time to time, but this time, I don't know. It feels different. I like help in finding her. The men discussed among themselves before briefly replying, We're sorry to hear that, sir. A missing persons report can be filed with our office. They handed him a business card with the local emergency hotline and told him to give the number a call for further assistance. The men turned away and went back to their lunch. Mr. Hill furrowed his brows, displeased with their response. He did not appreciate how the men tried to dismiss his issues with a simple brochure and a general emergency hotline number. The entity's claims its sole mission is to serve and protect, yet they failed to address a citizen in need. What more needs to be said, Mr. Hill scoffed. Missing persons and all you care about is today's lunch special? He was peeved and hurried back to his car before getting out of character. Mr. Hill was very big on public image, and he continued to keep his legacy intact if he wanted to. And if he continued to keep his legacy intact for his last years during his working tenure, he needed to keep it cool at all costs. It's not easy being a successful Black man in today's society, and image is important. Even the slightest bit of aggression, and his whole life could end, over. He took the high road. The last thing he needed was blaring headlines of another unprecedented killing of a Black man. Mr. Hill decided to take matters into his own hands. He had been sitting on the sidelines long enough. He decided to do some digging on his own. The kids had been away at their grandparents' home for the week, so he phoned them asking if they had seen or heard their mother lately. They both denied seeing her and asked if everything was okay. Everything was just fine, he confirmed. He consoled them and wished them well, saying he would see them soon. Later in the evening, he decided to go on a drive. Mrs. Hill loved the great outdoors and bike riding, and his wife and him would always ride through the trails. Maybe she went out on a ride, he proposed, hoping that she's just lost in the hills and her phone must have died. Not very much like her to keep up with technology anyways. Mr. Hill got into his vehicle and drove the path that him and his wife would take when they would go biking together. Along the bike path, there was nothing but tall trees, woods, and heavy foliage along the 3-mile stretch of road. He drove down the road slowly, spotting a peculiar object in the distance of the brush. He quickly circled his car back around and pulled to the side of the road, taking a closer look at the object that caught his eye. It appeared to be a silver bike. Mr. Hill quickly panicked, and when his mind went in a frenzy, he sped back home and he went to go check his garage. Maybe his eyes deceived him and is not what it seemed. Cracking open the garage door and clicking on the above light, Mr. Hill noticed the missing bike along the bike rack. Mr. Hill was frantic and began pacing through his home, pondering his next move. He couldn't believe it. Despite his better judgment, he convinced himself to dial the sheriff's office emergency line number given to him earlier that day. He explained to the call taker the situation and that he believed something bad happened to his wife. He saw her bike on a path under all heavy foliage, and he knew something must have been wrong. The call taker took down his information and stated someone would be right over. After waiting for over 3 hours, the men in emerald green that he previously saw at the diner earlier that day showed up at his doorsteps to gather more information. Mr. Hill already had a sour taste in his mouth based on the previous interaction, but decided to give them another chance based on the newfound and given information that came up. He explained to the men again that his wife was missing and how he looked around and that he decided to go looking for her after he left the diner that day. And that's when he stumbled across her bike in the woods. The men asked Mr. Hill if he searched the home for any notes or any signs of foul play. Mr. Hill stated that he saw the missing bike in the garage, but he hadn't looked any further out of fear. He just had this gut feeling, and seeing the bike confirmed his worries were no longer in vain. The men did a quick search of the home with consent of Mr. Hill and gathered their notes. They left him with yet another brochure and stated someone would be in touch. Displeased with the lack of investigative work, Mr. Hill took the brochure and the names of the men and escorted them out of his home. Mr. Hill began to grow angry and upset at the lack of assistance during this tragic moment in his life. How could this be? Tossing and turning all night long, Mr. Hill couldn't get any sleep. How would he tell his kids, his family, close friends? Many may have known his marriage wasn't the happiest, but how would his image look now that he was not there to save or protect his own wife? The very next day, Mr. Hill woke up to pounding knocks at his front door. Peering through the peephole, he witnessed several squad cars, forensic trucks, and other law enforcement personnel at the front of his home. Mr. Hill was pleased to see the task force, and he was elated that he would finally get the answers that he sought. Feeling guilty for accusing the squad of a faulty investigation, he opened the door and let the crew in. A tall man, sandy brown hair and gray eyes, entered the home and introduced the team. His demeanor was strong, admirable. The man was accompanied by a shorter woman, soft-spoken, seemingly pleasant. She offered him his condolences and gave him a solemn handshake. Mr. Hill's guard began to relax as he felt at ease with the presence of the two. They gave him a sense of comfort and control, and they ensured the situation would be taken care of, and they would be with him every step of the way. It wasn't before long or before Mr. Hill realized that it was all a part of a facade, the tactic of good cop, bad cop. "Oh, Mr. Hill," the woman chimed up. She sat him down, eyes baby poop pierced into his. "Why'd you wait so long to report your missing wife if you had such suspicions?" Mr. Hill objected and recanted the day earlier at the diner. "Oh, Mr. Hill," she replied, "our officer stated you informed them that you went searching right after you left the diner that day. Is that correct?" Mr. Hill agreed and stated it was later that evening. "Oh, Mr. Hill," she continued, "how were you able to spot the bike while driving if it was hidden and under such heavy foliage during the evening when the sun was setting?" Mr. Hill scratched his head, astonished at the questions being asked. He began to feel more like a primary suspect than a victim and possible widower. Mr. Hill was in disbelief. The soft-spoken woman now seemed to be out for blood. The tall man wrote down notes in his pad vigorously. After a few moments of questions and interrogations, the crew gathered their evidence and left Mr. Hill alone in his home. Confused, dismayed, Mr. Hill did not know what to make of this. The very next day, Mr. Hill's mind was in a whirlwind. He couldn't believe what was happening in front of his very eyes. He could not believe the very men in emerald green were once again pounding on his door at his front doorsteps. But this time, it was different. They came with a subpoena for his arrest, accusing him for being untruthful and responsible for the disappearance of his wife. With what proof? Demanded Mr. Hill. The man in emerald green laid out 4 documents in front of Mr. Hill. A statement from an anonymous witness stating they saw Mr. Hill at the location of where the bike was, and he seemed suspicious. A copy of a note that he had handwritten to his wife many years prior, which he explained that he was displeased in his marriage and that he wished her to be gone for good. A subpoena for his arrest explaining their probable cause. And lastly, a recorded and transcribed conversation he had with the call taker when he phoned in on the emergency line the days prior. Mr. Hill was in shock at the information presented before him. He was baffled and truly confused. How are they able to even conjure up such a story? Mr. Hill, a successful Black man, now breaking headlines, alluding to be a criminal. The media went frenzy and his reputation, as he knew, went down the drain based on senseless accusations. Did they even try? Mr. Hill regretted the phone call he made that very day, doing everything he could to try and lay low and do what was right in his eyes, seeking answers for his own wife's disappearance, and he was still deemed a threat. No true evidence, no real reasoning, and the fine men of the sheriff's office painted him out to be an image that wasn't true. Skewed in their minds of what they thought Mr. Hill to be, a criminal, right? Just another Black man who's a criminal. I mean, Black man, big house, failing marriage, success. Of course he wanted to off his wife and live in her riches, right? Or so they assumed. That's what they made it out to be. The unfortunate fact was Mr. Hill was not a criminal, but he was a concerned spouse. And despite his flaws in his marriage, he never wanted it to end in that kind of manner. Mr. Hill's career and life would never be the same. The accusations alone were enough to stifle his reputation, his whole career. Even if he was exonerated, he would never be able to eat or gain again. The very men in emerald green threw him under the bus because they failed to see the situation outside of their skewed and scandalous minds. Oh, Mr. Hill, another Black man falling to the victim at the hands of the very people meant to serve and protect. He let the men in emerald green whisk him away on that very day. The battle was lost, and the Black men don't win going up against the system. His fate now lay in his hands of his Savior, praying he would one day be restored. The end. Yay! Round of applause. So yes, this story again was just another recap. Like I said, I used to work in law enforcement. So, these are the things that genuinely happen. Unfortunately, our justice system can be kind of skewed sometimes, and investigations don't always go the way you think, or the way you think they would go, or the way you want them to go. And so many of our Black men are being falsely accused based on judgment, based on our minds and our judgments that we have, that we put on these people that we don't notice that we do. And then it reflects in our work, and it reflects and it affects these people's lives. So that's definitely where the story came from. That's definitely how I was able to write the story and how I was able to get the idea for the story. So it really is close to home. A lot of these events are, again, loosely related to actual factual events. So it just really ties into the dangers and what's going on in today's society. And it's actually kind of sad. So I figured that's the perfect story this Halloween. So to my Black men, please stay safe out here in these streets. You really never know what's going to happen or when it's going to happen. And you really never know who is watching you. And the judgments that can be cast on you, even if you think you're doing right and you're going well and you're going straight forward, sometimes people don't want to see you for that. People don't want to see you for the goodness that you have, or your successes and your riches. They want to see you for what you look like or what you seem like, or, oh, you're a criminal, or oh, you this, or whatever predisposed to judgments that they have. So that is definitely where that came from. I'm hoping you guys all stay safe this weekend, and just continue reading AllRosieWrites.com. Check out all my more short stories. Oh, Mr. Hill, Love Marley, and all the other Lost at Sea, all the other great creative works that I have on my blog. Click the link below. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, comment, turn on post notifications. I'll be doing more live readings very soon. So, of course, stay tuned for that. And thank you guys so much for tuning into my live reading. I hope you guys have a great night, okay? Thank you.